Hello to all of you and welcome to week 8. I'm going to start here this week before we get into our content because you got another one of these this week. And I want to touch on it real quick. Everybody did pretty well on vignette number 1. I think it's a good start. Just kind of wanted to see how you all interpreted what I put out there. I know that the instructions, they are intentionally vague because I want you to use what you have learned up until this point and kind of see what happens, right? I want you to kind of play with it and see what comes out, which is fine. So let's talk about for number 2. You may be wondering, okay, Jordan, what are you looking for? All right. Well, it really isn't what I'm looking for. It's kind of like, how do we document, right? Because a lot of what this class is you're not going to be able to diagnose, but I do want you to be able to document because you're going to be that is the thing with this field. You will document all the time. Everything is documented. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. And that's kind of the thing to keep in mind, right? If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. Okay. So we have to think, like, is what I'm putting in the note a good representation of what this patient is experiencing, right? Because it isn't just, it's your record, yes, but this could be professional to professional. And now with the CARES Act, I think it was the CARES Act that was passed in 2021, your patients will have access to some of this stuff, okay? Not all behavioral health notes, but many of them are addiction notes are not. Patients can't see them. But if you do behavioral health, which I know we're not talking about behavioral health, but like a lot of this has to do with behavioral health too. Like if you work in a behavioral health field or you're doing case management or whatever, like your patients are going to be able to see your note. And that's not to scare you, because like sometimes patients like will read my notes and they'll come back and they'll, well, you said, and then I have to, well, that's not that. I know what TikTok tells you, but that's not really what it is. But it is good to be able to document this stuff because it is going to be professional to professional. It is going to be how you write down what happened with your patient or what happened as you were working with someone. Regardless, if you want to be a clinician like me, or if you want to do case management, peer support, whatever you want to do, documentation matters. Okay. So that's why we're emphasizing this so much. So as we kind of go through this, like these are exactly what they are from the lecture in week 5, I think. Okay. What are you seeing here? Okay. Within normal limits is fine. If you're seeing some other stuff, put that down. Okay. Small narrative. So a small narrative is not 2 sentences. Okay. A small narrative is a good paragraph about like what is going on with the patient. Okay. What are you seeing? What are your observations? Give me insight. Give me any of that stuff. All that's good stuff. Okay. So I want kind of a pretty good paragraph about kind of what's going on. Diagnosis. Again, this one is for number 2. So I'm not giving you the diagnosis this time. So it's going to be up to you to kind of determine that on your own. Explanation, justification, right? Justification. How are you getting what you're getting? So whatever it is, substance, level of severity, are they continuing to use? Are they in remission? What are they? Right. So remember, we talked about that in, I think it was week 5 or 6. Like, I want to see that in your diagnosis. In your explanation, justification, use your DSM criteria. Audit, DAS, CAGE, like all of those are good screening tools. They are not diagnostic. If you want to use those to add justification to your diagnosis, that's good. But those in and of itself are not justification for a diagnosis. Okay. So keep that in mind. Level of care, whatever it is fine. But how are you justifying? It can't be just on vibes, right? We talk about the ASAM for a reason. I give you that crosswalk for a reason, that big thing that has levels 1, 2, 3, and what they all are, all the 6 dimensions. That's called a crosswalk. Use that. Tell me what dimensions are in there, right? I granted a little bit of grace on the on the first vignette, but I'm not going to have as much grace moving forward, since especially now that I've explained it. Okay. And then the additional questions. So that I'm looking for open ended. Okay. I don't want yes, no, right? I know that you may have like clinical questions. That's cool, because that's going to be in your intake. But we're looking for change talk, right? We're looking for what kind of questions are open ended, right? And using those to elicit change, to get them to open, to get them to talk. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking for next time. Cool. Let's get trippy. By the way, I'm repping Villa Madonna. Cora had lost 4 straight, and I had to do some child therapy the other night. But tonight we swept. So won all 3 sets, and it's a great day. And go Villa. We got another game tomorrow. I've had 3 games in 3 days. Tomorrow is we had the 2 games yesterday. Game Wednesday, 2 games yesterday, game today, and another game tomorrow. Maybe 3 games tomorrow, depending on if they keep winning. So let's get trippy. So last week I was in Denver. I went to go watch the Bengals get absolutely car killed. But while I was there, I went to this place called Meow Wolf, and there's several of them across the country. And it's like this giant maze playhouse like thing. And I was thinking, like, how fitting that we are talking about marijuana and hallucinogens this week, because if I were on marijuana and hallucinogens, boy, this place would be wild. So anyway, I encourage you to go. There are several around the country. This one was in Denver. There's one in Houston. There's one in I want to say New Mexico. Or there's one in Dallas. There's one in New Mexico, and then there's this one in Denver, and it's bonkers, and it was a lot of fun. So it's pretty cool. But boy, would it if I were on a hallucinogen, it would be interesting. Let's talk about them. So here's some terminology that we're gonna have as we kind of talked about this. So fantastica are drugs that can create in our minds a world of fantasy, right? So that's kind of what the draw for hallucinogens and marijuana, especially in high enough doses, is they will create this fantastica where, like, boy, the world is just kind of a funhouse mirror, isn't it? Psychedelics means mind viewing. If you the technical term for psychedelics, mind viewing. Okay, psychotomimetic meaning mimicking psychosis. So people who are on hallucinogens will experience psychotomimicry, because they will experience things that mimic sort of psychosis, or that they're losing touch with their reality. Entheogen is a substance. The key thing is in theology, right? Substances that produce spiritual or religious experiences. That's one of the common things that can happen with some of the hallucinogens that we're going to be talking about, is that it can create this sort of like expansive, like I'm almost like a god, like I am omnipotent, I am omniscient, right? And then there's entactogen, which are substances that enhance feeling of empathy. We'll talk about that a little bit today with MDMA. Molly has a tendency to create kind of this kind of sinking in feeling, right? Same thing can happen with hallucinogens, LSD, or mescaline, psilocybin. Can create that sort of like I am sinking and becoming one with the chair kind of thing, or I'm developing empathetic feelings for the tree that's in my backyard, that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about all these things, but I wanted to kind of start out because there may be some of this terminology that we talk about. Some of the short-term effects of hallucinogens: we got visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, rapid heart rate, sweating, nausea, or vomiting. That's actually very common. Long-term effects: persistent psychosis, frequent flashbacks. I can't remember what HPPD is, so let me get you that. Hallucinogenic persistent perception disorder. Say that 3 times fast. Hallucinogenic or hallucinogen persisting perception disorder. So you can actually experience some kind of like floating, long-term kind of floating effects one of the things on hallucinogens, if you've ever seen a kombucha bottle and you've wondered why a kombucha bottle is like a kombucha bottle, on high enough doses of psilocybin, you can actually start to see why, because you kind of start to see that same pattern. And so those patterns, right? If you've never seen a kombucha bottle, let me get that for you. Um, let me find one. You can make kombucha at home. It's like a fermented tea. Really, the synergy is kind of what I'm going for. Like that kind of pattern. I know it's not great, but like this sort of like kaleidoscope kind of view, that can actually stay sort of permanent in on long-term effects. So here are some of the ones that make you hallucinate: psilocybin, LSD, PCP, ketamine, DMT, peyote, San Pedro, salvia, and ayahuasca. And we're going to talk about several of them as we kind of go along. So what influences? So your mental state at the time of you dropping. When I say dropping, I mean using hallucinogens. We're going to start with hallucinogens. We're going to marijuana. So how are you feeling? If you're in a good place, if you're in a happy vibe, a good mood, then you got a good, that's going to influence what you're doing. Your setting at the time of using. So, um, this is, and by the way, this is not to sort of advocate for using. It's more of when you're talking with someone, you can recognize what it is. You can talk to them about how to do it. If you're going to do it safely. Here's how we educate. We're not giving permission. We're just saying this is what it is. And if you just are determined to do it, then this is what it's going to look like. All right. So this is education and exposure more than anything. Okay. Your setting. So where are you? Are you in a safe location? If you are not in a safe location, you're going to have a bad time, most likely. So it's important for you to be in a safe and secure location. The dosage that you take is also very important. People usually go between 50 and 500 micrograms. That kind of 50 range, especially when we're talking about LSD, is going to be kind of what I'll show you what blotter paper looks like. That's actually how you use LSD or acid. And each one of the little squares is like 50 micrograms, right? And so starting slow and working your way up. Okay. Music can really help. Music can really help someone. Having you probably don't want to listen to like heavy death metal as you're trying to do shrooms or any of these psychedelics. That might not be in your best interest. But listening to things that are uplifting, that are soothing, that are calming, that you can really connect with is important. Having a trip sitter or a shaman, in other words, someone who is sitting with you, sort of writing down or taking in the things that you're saying, can be very beneficial. And what or when did you eat, right? So as it is with alcohol, carbs, things in your belly have an impact of absorption. So if somebody takes a shroom or takes LSD or takes something on an empty stomach, it will get absorbed very rapidly into their bloodstream and they will start to trip very quickly. Okay. So if you're eating something, that can kind of delay because it's gotta kind of get metabolized in your system and kind of work its way through. And there is a delay. Like we're going to get to mushrooms in a few slides, but like with mushrooms especially, like you could take it at 8 o'clock and not feel it until 9:30. Right. And so you can take something and somebody could have it and they can be like, wow, there really isn't anything here. So they keep taking more and more and more. And then they're in another planet by 10 or 10:30. Not that I know from experience. All right. So let's see. Good trips versus bad trips. So like as we talk about hallucinogens are not this big scary thing. Okay. So that's, again, as we talk about this stuff, we want to approach these things without judgment. Okay. And this is not advocacy. This is very neutral. This is what you can experience. In a good trip, there is release of anxiety and tension. There are feelings of connectedness. Like you can really feel connected to people with you, to the world around you, to the ground, to wherever you're at. You can feel this center of connection and this center of this being. Okay. There is a sense of oneness that can happen as one uses some of these substances, and also an enhanced visual, auditory, or tactile, meaning things I'm feeling, stimuli. So you will see things, you will experience colors are way more brighter. Um, you know, sounds, music sounds way different. You can hear it. It's much more, there's a greater fullness to it. The things that you feel have more of a texture to them. Okay. So in a good trip, if you're in a good place, if you're having a good experience, it can actually be really cool. A bad trip, however, is scary as shit. Many will experience ego death, and that can be very, very scary. There can be an increase in anxiety. There can be a lot of feelings of remorse, sadness, guilt, grief, just complete opening up of one's inner being. Okay. And it can enhance PTSD like symptoms, such as a terror or fear response. I may share some things here in a little bit as we kind of go on, just to give you an example. So what does LSD even do? Lysergic acid diethylamide. It is a modification of visual perception. So each one of these little squares that you see here is 50 micrograms, right? If you take a few, okay. If you take a bunch, okay, right? And it's usually given on this kind of psychedelic little paper here, okay? It will distort your time perception. And when I say that, I cannot overstate that enough. It will distort your time perception. You will think that it has been 6 hours and it's been 15 minutes. It's wild. Changes in the perception of one's own body and some alterations of auditory input. It will blend sensory input, a phenomenon called synesthesia. Okay. Changes that occur in the perception of self are typically experienced as depersonalization, meaning I am not part of my own body. I am not here. I am not feeling connected. And symptoms like depersonalization tend to produce an either expansive, meaning I'm growing much bigger than what I am, or I'm shrinking down and becoming very, very small reaction in the user. Okay. So basically what would happen is you get the, it is a clear liquid that is put in kind of a petri dish kind of thing. And you take this paper, it's called blotter paper, and it's puts that in there and it gets soaked. Then it gets dried, and as it's dried, the stuff's in there, and then you can break off the little tabs, and that's how you do acid. Put it on your tongue, let it dissolve. And that's how you do acid. Fun, huh? Okay. Let's talk about psilocybin. Psilocybin is otherwise, when we're talking about shrooms, we're talking about psilocybin. Okay. Psilocybin mexicana is the most well-known psychoactive mushroom. Primary active agent is psilocybin, as we mentioned before. Psilocybe cubensis grows on cow dung in the United States Gulf Coast, right? Hallucinogenics effects of psilocybin are similar to LSD and mescaline, and cross-tolerance to the three substances can take place. So if someone is using LSD, they may be numb to some of the mushrooms and vice versa. Psilocybin will induce intense changes in mood, perception, and thought, and it is associated with mythical experiences. You may be wondering how, so people go around and just get on cow dung and that's how they, no, it is actually legal to have spores. They come in a syringe. And you can have them and you can use them for observation purposes only. So you can order them off this newfangled thing called the interwebs, and you can have them. And most people will use Uncle Ben's Ready Rice in order to grow them. And you may wonder, how does that happen? Well, this is completely illegal. What I'm telling you right now is completely illegal. Do not do it. I do not advocate for it, but your patients may do it, because a lot of these things that we're talking about in this whole class here is illegal. Okay. So I'm not advocating for any of this. I'm just telling you how it works. Okay. So that's my caveat. Let me say it one more time. I'm not advocating for you to do any of these things. I'm not saying they are okay. I'm saying this is just how it works. Okay. You can shoot the messenger all you want. This is just how it works. So you can get a syringe of spores and you can use them. It is completely legal for you to take them and put them under a microscope and observe them. That is 100% legal, and you can do that today if you wanted to. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that you can. Except if you're in Idaho, Georgia, and I think California. Those are the 3 states you can't. But what people also tend to do is they will grow their own mushrooms from home, and they put them in an Uncle Ben's brown Ready Rice, and that grows and they feed on that, and then you take that and you put it in dirt and then you wait and then it grows into mushrooms, and you can do that in your home. I'm not saying that you should. I'm not saying that I advocate for it. I'm just saying that's how people do it. All right. So that's how people do it. That's how people get mushrooms. Or they go and find cow dung. That still works too. But that's how it's done. And so your patients may be interested in doing some of that. That may be what they're doing to get their mushrooms. They may know a guy. I don't know, but I'm saying that's how it's done, and that's what you may see out there in the field as you're working with someone that may be, using hallucinogens on a regular basis. Okay, cool. MDMA, otherwise known as Molly, otherwise known as ecstasy, 3,4-methylene-doxymethamphetamine. Rest in peace, MF Doom. I think he's dead, but anyway, he had a song called "All Out of Green," where he rapped, 1 for the show, 2 for the better green, 3,4-methylene-doxymethamphetamine, and good rapper, MF Doom. Effects of MDMA are more like classical or more like methamphetamine, so than classic hallucinogens, right? So anecdotal reports will suggest that MDMA use produces more negative or depressed mood states in the days following. So that like complete drop of dopamine, serotonin, etc., because you're getting flooded with it. You're getting flooded with it when you're using these substances, and then when that drops, it's like, oh no. There is a belief that MDMA use causes damages to the brain cells, but again, that's not supported by research. Molly is something that it is known as a party drug. It is known as, hey, let's have a great time. It's also known as something that like you can really start to have some hallucinogenic stuff going on that can have an impact on, again, with visual stimuli, auditory stimuli, tactile stimuli, like all those things I talked about before. Using Molly, again, similar to methamphetamines, obviously with methamphetamine in the name, but because of how it's structured, it gives you a little bit of that hallucinogenic stuff as well, that sort of psychedelic experience that methamphetamine tends to not really do other than mimic some schizophrenia type symptoms. Okay. So moving on to ayahuasca. Now this has kind of become pretty popular, to be honest with you. It's pretty popularized. If you follow football, there's a quarterback named Aaron Rodgers, and he plays for the disgusting Pittsburgh Steelers. And he's also kind of a douchebag. But besides that, he promoted the use of ayahuasca. So he would go to Oregon, I think, and go to a retreat where he would use ayahuasca. Now, ayahuasca is a sacred form of tea or beverage in South America. Okay. It has psychoactive properties, and it's gaining in popularity and uses, as I said. It was traditionally used for religious and spiritual purposes, but it has become popular to have people who want to go open their minds, heal from past traumas, or simply experience the journey that ayahuasca can provide them. Basically, these ayahuasca leaves are cooked and soaked in water. They are heated, and then there is this brown, muddy liquid that is left over, and that is what people drink, similar to tea, right? I mean, it is a tea. And what it does, usually that involves a 2 or 3 day kind of retreat, that they go out deep into the woods and they sit in a circle and they have they really open up their minds, and it is very intense. Like, I'm not joking about that. It is very intense. The journey, the ayahuasca journey, will last several hours on just one. They may have you do one drink and then a few hours later do another. But that journey will last for a while. And that's the thing about hallucinogens. Once you're in it, you can't just get out of it. So if you're not having a great experience, unfortunately, you got to ride that out. And there are people, obviously I'm not going to recommend anybody do this or say that oh, it's okay. But like if it is something that is done, whether it's with a patient or with yourself or whatever, like make sure you have somebody with you, because that can be very comforting. It can be very lonely and kind of terrifying if you're doing all this solo. Like it's really tough. And so when people do ayahuasca journeys, if they go on the retreats, they're not alone. So they'll go out into the woods of Costa Rica, out in Costa Rica. There's some here in America. There was actually some in Kentucky not too long ago, but I think those have been shut down. I think the guy that did it, he passed away. There's actually a documentary about this. I want to say it's on YouTube. I'll find it, but it was basically just what I said. There were people who would go to this church, and there was a pastor there who would provide them with ayahuasca, and they would stay there for a couple days, and they would experience like this complete healing. And then you'd see them at the end, and they're like, man, I'm great. Like, this is awesome. I feel so good. I feel healed. I feel XYZ. So ayahuasca is getting to be pretty popular. Okay. So just wanted to let you all know, and it's fun to spell. Yeah. The other thing that's kind of becoming really popular is a medication called ketamine. Now, this was the thing that killed Matthew Perry. If you're a Friends fan, this is the thing that killed him. I guess technically drowning killed him, but the use of ketamine to then drown is the thing that killed him. So it was originally used as a local anesthetic, but now it can be used to alleviate major depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Used in clinical practice when someone has shown resistance to historical treatments for depression, and it works by rebuilding or reconnecting the communication of neurons due to neuroplasticity. Now, there's a number of different ways that this can be used. We have Spravato, which is a nasal spray, so just like you do for your allergies. It can be injected, so in other words, this is known as an infusion. So you will go to a clinic, and they will put you in a very comfy chair. They'll give you some very nice music. They'll put an IV in your arm, and then they will give you your ketamine infusion. The other way is, you can see kind of a powder over here. Well, if you press that together, you get a pill form. And so you can take it in a pill form. The pill form, you put in your mouth, like in your gums right here, right? And you don't swallow it. It dissolves in your mouth and it gets secreted. You get dosed through it, going through like the gaps and stuff and running down the back of your throat. It goes out like under your tongue. It can be like sublingually introduced into your system. So, and then you spit it out, because if you swallow it too much, it actually will not be fun for you. But you spit it out, and then you just kind of go into a trip that will last for about an hour. During it, you have headphones, you listen to stuff. There's an app that you can do. They have like little uplifting kind of music, and then you journal, and you have someone that kind of, I think the one that's the most popular is called Mind Bloom, although there's a few others that are out there. But Mind Bloom is one of the more popular ones. And you do everything from home. Now, obviously you have somebody there with you to kind of help you, because you want to make sure that you're safe, but you do everything from home. And it's, so what happens is the research and the evidence suggests that we know that our brain has neuroplasticity, right? So we can relearn things, or we can learn new things. We can build stronger connections, unwind, rebuild. And so basically the theory goes, we get into problems and we get into trouble when things are wired in our brain a certain way. And in order to get those out of that, we have to like break those bonds and rewire new ones. So what happens is you set your intention before you go into a ketamine session, and you say, okay, this is my intention. I want to accept it. I want to accept love freely, just as I am and for who I am, right? As opposed to like, I have to perform, like some people will say, like, I have to perform and earn love, right? I am okay just as I am, and I receive love for myself and with others. Like, that's going to be your intention. And you go in, ketamine, listen to music. Then afterwards you do an integration where you write everything down that you learned or that you feel, and you just reinforce those kinds of things over time to kind of relearn some of these things that have struggled with historically. Okay. So again, as we're talking about these things, I'm not advocating. I'm just saying that like you may have patients that have questions, and like this is ketamine, so it's actually very safe. In fact, there was a I don't remember. I don't know if this actually ended up happening, but there was like some scuttlebutt that at Journey Recovery Center they were actually going to start using ketamine to help patients, but I don't know if that actually got up off the ground for a number of reasons. But there was some movement in that direction towards doing that. So it's growing in popularity. Okay, cool. Signs, symptoms of hallucinogens, physical symptoms. Again, we talked about those. Cognitive symptoms: poor judgment, amnesia, delusions, poor focus, paranoia, poor concentration, etc., etc., etc. So I say all this stuff, but research is happening. We are starting to see therapeutic uses of LSD. We're starting to see therapeutic uses of, as I mentioned before, ketamine. We're starting to see microdosing of psilocybin actually providing benefits for people who struggle with PTSD. So the use of hallucinogens in clinical practice is really starting to grow. There's a book that was very, very good that I read called How to Change Your Mind, and it was the journalist who wrote the book went on a journey to find places that would dose him with psychedelics to help him, overcome some things from his past. Very, very fascinating article or book. And in fact, a few years ago, I went to the Rocky Mountain Symposium of Addictive Disorders. This is a national convention, and the keynote speaker was someone, I don't remember his name, I wish I could, but he was in that book, that the How to Change Your Mind book, but he was a psychiatrist, and all that he did was psychedelics with patients and testing them in a clinical way in a lab and seeing how they responded. And he did research, and that was that. He did therapy and a bunch of other stuff with them, but like that was his whole thing. And he's the keynote speaker at a thing, at a seminar, a conference about addiction. So there is a lot of like movement and energy towards, okay, maybe there's something here with some of these medications. Okay, so there's that. All right, let's talk about weed. Most of you are familiar with it, but some terms: endocannabinoid system. These are endogenous neurotransmitters, meaning we already have them, that bind to cannabidiol and cannabinoid receptors. These are important because the system is involved in regulating appetite, pain and pleasure, immune system, mood, and memory. Okay. Tetrahydrocannabidiol is THC, and that is the psychoactive molecule of marijuana. Cannabidiol is CBD, and that's the non-psychoactive molecule of marijuana. So if something has active THC in it, that's the psychoactive model. If you're wondering why can some marijuana, like you see marijuana stuff being sold in Kentucky, is because it's not THC, because that's not legal yet. It's some like other version that doesn't have the psychoactive, and then a little bit of the CBD, which is able to be sold in Kentucky. Now in Ohio, you can get THC drinks and seltzers and things. But in Kentucky, you cannot. Check with your local state if you're not in those two. Okay, so we got two main types. All right, we got sativa and we got indicas. All right, so sativa and indica. So sativas are going to be your head high, right? It's going to be up here. People are going to feel it up here. Going to be more alert, right? I'm going to be more engaged. I'm going to be upbeat. I'm going to feel more creative. I'm going to be like, hey, everybody, how's it going kind of thing. And I'm going to feel much more relaxed. I'm going to have tons of energy. I'm going to feel there's not going to be as much anxiety, not going to be as much depression because I'm upbeat. Here we go. Everything's great, blah, blah, blah. Now, the actual leaf is taller, denser, or less dense, longer, more narrow. And it's just this going to be, hey, how we go? Here we go. Indica, you're going to feel here in your body. and it's more suited for just, I'm wanting to chill. Like, I just want to chill out. I'm going to reduce my pain. I'm going to reduce my stress. I'm just going to chill out. I'm going to be fully sedated, right? And hybrid, which is what the majority of stuff that's out there are usually hybrids. It's going to be a balance of the two, but of the two, it's going to lean more towards that body high. Okay. Now, how do you remember the two? It's very easy. Indica, flor, right? Indica, flor. Meaning if I'm taking an indica, I'm going to be in the floor before too long because I'm going to be so relaxed. Okay. So Indica, Indiflor, and then sativa you would know is the other one. So why does this matter? Well, that, again, educating patients. If this is something that you're looking to do, make sure you're doing it safely. Here's what you're looking for. Okay. Now, the thing about dispensaries, though, is it's not some back alley. Like that's some of you may have been in a dispensary before now that they're much more popular. But like the people there are very educated. There is sort of the stigma around it that it's some place in a back alley and a stigma. This not. This is a place in Colorado called, I want to say it's called Deeper Roots. This is Chichillo Greens. I went to New Mexico. And so this is Chichillo Greens. And then these are all the different things that are available for people to use. Okay. So now that, especially in Ohio, marijuana is legal, people go there. Or people from Kentucky come over the river. But it offers a bunch of different stuff. So that's what a dispensary looks like. That's inside of a dispensary. If you've never been inside one, they have certain things they got to do before you walk in. But this is what it looks like more often than not. It actually looks like a coffee shop. I mean, if you didn't know any better, it kind of would be. Okay, cool. What do these labels mean? How much and what's in it? THC is the psychoactive component. THCA is the acidic component, which is then converted into the THC when it is heated up. So you take the percentage of THCA, you multiply it by 0.877, and that's your total THC. Okay, you can see that math over here. Cool. Math is fun, kids. Obviously, more THC, the more of an effect that someone's going to get from it. Okay, so encourage them to read labels because that is what is very, very important. Here's the other thing that's becoming more popular with the kids, which are dabs. So dabs are a highly concentrated version of marijuana. This is considered a rig. This is called a nail, and this is your heating element. So what people will do is they will take this paste down here, or this dab. It's like a firmer honey. If I had to describe it in a way, it's like a firmer. Yeah, it's kind of like a. If you've ever had one of those like squishy stress balls, not the watery based ones, but the ones that give you a little bit of like pushback when you use them, it's kind of that little texture, right? But it's this right here. Okay. It's like a wax. Not really. Like, yeah, I think it's probably the closest thing I can say. Anyway, so you take a little bit of that, you put it on the end of the nail here, and then you're going to put the nail down in to this to your hole right here. Okay, as you can see this person is doing, and then it's going to get heated, right? And that heat will then go down. We'll take it and send it down here, right? Which it can then be smoked and used through the mouthpiece. Okay, so it is more potent and more effective. One joint on average, as we can go back to this thing. So if we were to roll this, it is 25.95% total THC. If we were to take a hit off of a dab rig, it's 75 to 80% THC. Like way different, way more potent. And you can see, and this is very popular with teenagers. Now, you can see why this is an issue because in their developing brain, the more potency that a drug has, the more it's going to affect their brain, right? So you got kids using this stuff, it's burning them out way quicker than it otherwise would. So that's why it's really dangerous. Okay. And it is a highly concentrated version of marijuana. Okay. Cool. Vapes too. Vapes will contain between 40 and 80% THC. Okay. So again, I think they're trying to get rid of some of these like flavored cartridges because of how appealing they are. But yeah, I mean 40 to 80% THC, right? It's important. So how does weed work? Well, we still don't know. What we do know is that regular neurotransmission occurs with a signal being released in the synapse to the receptor site. Okay, with marijuana, however, that the endocannabinoid releases a feedback to the sending neurotransmitter. From there, marijuana serves as a neuromodulator. It enhances some transmitters and restricts others. Why? We don't know. We just know that it happens. Okay. Well, also what we do know is that marijuana has an impact on the developing brain. The endocannabinoid receptors are more prevalent in white brain matter, otherwise known as the subcortical regions of the brain covered in myelin. And white brain matter is most present in our brain up to the age of 25, and that's when we really start to lose that. Okay. And it's mostly involved in the region of our brain responsible for our ability to learn new information, our ability to remember old information, our motivation to do things, and then our emotional regulation. Okay. Those are the four, right? So learning new things, remembering old things, motivation to do things, and our emotional regulation, right? If you have met a teenager or someone that is struggling with like behavior stuff and they're using marijuana, you probably see a lot of this stuff, right? Because it obviously has an impact. And in fact, like that's the approach that I take with when I don't see teenagers as much anymore. But when I did, I would talk to them about this because I'm not going to fight them on it because like I'm the old guy that doesn't know what he's talking about. So I was like, all right, if you're going to use, I mean, it's what it is, but this is what the impact that it's having on your brain is that kind of what you want, as opposed to really trying to like fight them on it. Okay. So what's up with CBD? Again, this is otherwise known as cannabidiol, and it is derived from hemp. So it targets anandamine, which aids in pleasure, pain, and appetite. Right. Golfers like to use this because it helps. It's not FDA approved, okay, except for the prescription treatment of Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, a rare form of epilepsy. It's important to look at cannabis withdrawal because that does happen. Irritability, depression, insomnia, anxiety, flu-like symptoms, and weight changes last for about 1 to 2 weeks. Okay. On to not week 12. This is not what this is. I think we'll be in week 10. Let's change that. And I don't think we're doing prevention and harm reduction. I don't. I think we're doing opiates. Let me check on that. I was correct. Opiates and alcohol. That's what we're going to talk about next week. But take a break. All right, you're going to get 2 weeks to work on this report. And so you don't have to turn this in, I think, until October 18th, which is my birthday. Do with that what you will. And so we'll see you then. So have a great break. Have a good couple weeks, and I'll see you on the other side. So, as always, these stupid gooses, Canadian geese are definitive proof that evil exists. Live Mahalo. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Okay, bye, kids.